everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the News Just News Weekly Roundup. This is episode 35, big number. I am your host for today, Lucia, and once again, I am joined by Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
We've got a lot of interesting news today. It's going to be an entertainment-heavy episode. And once again, if you would like to read about all of these stories that we're talking about today and many, many more, you can go on our website, newsjustnews.com, and you'll find these stories and everything you want to know about politics, sports, social, current events, anything you'd like. So we are starting with a cinema story. We know that this month there was a Disney movie that came out, actually a live action, Moana, and it didn't go very well. Adam, would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so Disney have not learned. Well, I think they, especially with this, they might have learned their lesson. But the Moana live action, it's been out for a few weeks now, and we know it's flopped. I don't think this is surprising anyone. So it 95 million at the box office against a budget of 250 million. So that is a hefty loss, not to mention the marketing budget was 120 million, so a definitive flop. But as I was saying, it didn't surprise me at all. Like, for me, Moana is just, it's not quite a classic. I mean, it only came out 10 years ago. Moana 2 only came out 2 years ago. It's just, I don't know, I don't think it's anyone's particularly favorite Disney film. And according to comments that I've seen online, critics, a lot of people are saying it was just a one-for-one of the original. I mean, especially when you consider it was Dwayne in his role that he always plays, and the visuals. So a lot of people are saying it was like people took the animated original and ChatGPT prompted, make it live action, and then that's just what Disney came out with. So there was a lot of criticism on that part, and also with the visuals it just looked a bit stale in that sense as well. So they ported it into live action, but then they haven't really sparkled it up either for some reason. I also saw online a lot of people were saying about Catherine Lagaya, like her hair. So obviously I think so. Like, her hair was like originally the perfect texture of Moana's, very Polynesian and curly, and they straightened it for the film, which I think is so silly. Like, why are they doing that? I think in just so many ways Disney just really dropped the ball with this one. Yeah. And then it's come back to bite them.
I think the key in what you said is the fact that it's not a classic, and then therefore people are not really interested to go see a live action of it. Most importantly, because like you said, it only came out 10 years ago, so it almost feels as if the audience will be kind of like the same one, because kids 10 years ago, obviously now they're a little bit older, but they would still maybe be interested to see a live action because it's the same people that saw the cartoon, and therefore maybe you wouldn't want to see the same thing twice, like you said, but instead of having it in a animated version, then you'll have to see it in a live action film. So maybe if they waited a little bit longer, it would have been better to kind of create some more, wait some more time. But at the same time, I feel the key is the fact that because it's not a classic, you wouldn't really be interested in seeing a live action of a certain animated movie. I think some of them, are really untouchable, and I don't think we should have a live action. And even the old ones, in this case, obviously with it being newer, I wouldn't mind, but I think they should have let some more time pass. I don't know if you've seen the Snow White, for example, live action, the one with Rachel Zegler, but that one kind of flopped as well, because I think there's such classics, and unless it's done really well, people would not really be interested in watching them, I feel. So yeah, it's a shame, but again, Dwayne Johnson just adding another flop to his career, to his cinematic career. We are staying in the film environment now, talking about the film industry again. We have an announcement that's been made this week. So the Toronto Film Festival has announced the new titles that are going to be presented during the festival, which will take place in September, right after the Venice Film Festival. We already knew the film that was going to open the festival, which was a film called Being Human, based on the life of Judith Newman, who was a disability rights activist. But this week we got many more titles that were announced that are going to be presented at the festival. We have 64 titles, out of which 32 are world premieres, which I think is amazing. And we have, loads to see, loads to talk about. But I think the most interesting ones are a few that kind of like caught my interest. One of them is called A Talent for Murder, and it stars Helen Mirren, obviously, amazing cinema legend Helen Mirren. And the most, the kind of like greatest part of it is the fact that she plays Patricia Highsmith. Obviously, Patricia Highsmith being the writer and author of the Talented Mr. Ripley series. And in the movie, basically, she plays the novelist as if she plays the novelist, and she's kind of like being persuaded into writing more novels, more Ripley novels, by kind of like a mysterious literary agent. And I think this will be kind of like an interesting movie. Then we have a Seth Rogen movie called Baby. In this movie, was actually written by his wife, and it follows the life of a childless couple having to all of a sudden take care of a 3-year-old. So we see kind of like what it means for, two people that don't want to be parents having to kind of like be forced into taking care of a little kid. And I think that could be interesting as well. And then we have one that it's kind of like interesting in the concept. It's called A Play Rocky. And it's quite kind of like a meta movie, because basically it's a movie that follows the production of a movie, which is obviously Rocky, the movie that, launched Sylvester Stallone's career. I think that's quite interesting as a concept, because it kind of like digs into, what it means to make a movie, especially, in the 60s, and what it means to create a movie that then literally created one of the biggest stars in cinema ever. So I think that could be quite interesting. And the director for this movie is the same director for Green Book, which was presented in Toronto a few years back and then went on to win the Academy Award. So there's really high expectations. And in general, the Toronto Film Festival is always an occasion to see loads of, famous people just being guests and presenting their movies. So this year we'll have quite a few important guests once again: the Taron Egerton, James McAvoy, Antonio Banderas, Margaret Qualley, Lily James, Amanda Seyfried, just to name a few. So tons of movies and tons of like really interesting things. Adam, have you heard about anything that is going to be presented at TIFF? Anything that kind of like interested you or caught your eye?
I was going to say, I'm so glad that you pronounced Being Human, because I did not think it's pronounced that way. I was like,
I think it's pronounced that way.
Well, I was there like, Being Human. But yeah, they all sound so interesting. The one thing I sort of saw was like, there are so many that are like, I don't know, like reality films. Like there doesn't seem to be much quite out there. It's very like down to earth, like this is people's real lives and situations. So that just, I don't know, that just seems like interesting to me, that these are all quite pulled back in a way.
Yeah, and also Toronto is usually quite famous for giving like a voice to a lot of indie creators and directors and indie movies that otherwise wouldn't really like reach, like a great audience. So they always present like really interesting movies, and sometimes you get like a glimpse of them on platforms like on Netflix or on Amazon. But with them being kind of like smaller movies, it's good that they get presented there so that they can possibly, hopefully, get like a bigger platform. Some of the most amazing movies that came out in the last few years were like a Toronto Film Festival exclusive, and I think it's kind of like it kind of has like, you know, that reputation of being really interested in smaller realities compared to like another big festival, like for example the Venice Film Festival. So yeah, they always have like very interesting choices. And also one thing that I was really curious about was the fact that there's also a movie directed by Courtney Cox, so obviously, you know, Monica from
I
Friends,
saw that.
called Evil Genius. And like it sounds super interesting because it's based on a docu-series that came out a few years back. I think I remember, like, I didn't see the series, but I remember hearing about it, and it was like just an insane, like, crime case. But one of those that, you know, Netflix would do like a series about, where you've got the crime action, obviously, but also just like an insane concept behind it. You know, those like crime shows where you're watching them and you're like, what is happening, what is going on. So I think it would be really cool to see that as well. And she said that she actually said that it's kind of like, you know, heartbreaking and kind of like it keeps you on your toes, but at the same time is also, you know, very exciting to see and quite fun in its own way. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite fun to kind of like try to watch these films and see what TIFF is going to present this year. Once again, you can read about this and many more stories on our website. So you can go on News Just News and you'll find everything there. And then for our third story for the day, we're passing to music, and we are going to talk about Lana Del Rey, who has, you know, shocked his fans with a new surprise.
Yeah, definitely. So we're not just getting one album, we're having two, which is kind of mad. Because, I mean, the second, I mean, I'll get into it, but the second one was, well, the first one has been in development since 2024, and then this one's just surprise. And then from what I gather, is going to be talking about the period, you know, since the last album until now, and like what's going on in her life. So yeah, on Instagram, she on July 15th, Lana Del Rey put up a post, massive long post, with some shots, so like the album cover and stuff. So we know that the 10th album, so like the first album, is going to be called Stove. It was originally titled Lasso or Lasso, people say it differently, and then she changed it to The Right Person Will Stay, and then now she's changed it again to Stove, and then I guess there's a little throwback to the old Lasso name, because in Stove the O is like the whip, the lasso. And yeah, so her last album from 2023 was Did You Know There Was a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, and then yeah, so this has just been in development for a few years. And then she's also now said that there's a companion album. People say it's going to be called Spider, because, as in Spyda, because on the album cover there's a ship called Spider, or Spider, I don't know how you say it. And she said for this companion album, it's going to be a commentary of sorts on just sort of what's been going on. I think it's kind of mysterious, but from what she said, so she said compiled by as many people as she could, you know, throughout her life. And she said one thing that really caught my attention, which was, "Wish the best to everyone who stayed on land. Just kidding. I thought we were in the boat together." So like the spider boat. And I don't know, I think there's going to be like a bit of drama there. So she's going to have this album. She's called both of them her most beautiful pieces of work. So I think Stove is going to be just very, you know, typical Lana Del Rey. You know, amazing, beautiful, melancholic. And then this other one, I think might be a bit, raunchy is going to be the wrong word, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit of spice, a little bit of drama in that one. So yeah, I'm excited. I think with Stove, I haven't actually heard them, but I know it's some of their live performances. Like, so these are some of the songs that we've already heard. But yeah, so exciting. I don't actually know when these are coming out as well, so I'm sure it'll be drip fed, and there'll be plenty of updates on News Just News.
It's quite interesting to see how more and more artists now kind of like release a lot of music all at once. I think I think this is something that Taylor Swift does a lot, obviously. I'm not sure if there's other like artists that kind of like follow through this, but I think it's quite interesting to see how she just like announced an album and then immediately another one. Like that is a lot of songs to, write, sing, produce, just like release. And I mean, it's amazing, but at the same time, I don't know, it's quite overwhelming, especially like as a fan. I feel like you have a lot to process, and sometimes quantity doesn't necessarily equal quality. So we'll have to see if it's a good one. She's always been quite amazing. I mean, I feel like her choices. I'm glad Anna's not here right now because she might hate me to say that saying this, but kind of like with Taylor, sometimes it just feels like she just releases everything that she's got, and she writes a lot, and then she just like makes the most out of it. Whereas with Lana Del Rey, I feel like this choice might have been a little bit more kind of like thought through and just kind of like measured. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what this album is going to be about and what she's gonna tell us. As you said, like her music, it's always melancholic and just like amazing. So I'm really hoping that she'll do the same thing with this one. And so this was the last story for today. Once again, you can head on our website, News Just News, and find everything there and read about so much more. And thank you, Adam, for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
See you, everyone.